This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back in, or welcome into for the first time this season, the Giraffe Room. My name is Jake Neverman, and I'll be here all season long with my co-host, Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And if you haven't seen us on the fast break, already our predictions out, Western Conference, Eastern Conference awards, everything, our preseason, literally everything is out on the fast break. But on this podcast specifically, we will be talking about the game, college game, the international game. We might dab in a little high school because, you know, Advanced versus the Boozer Twins the other day was kind
of hype.
It was pretty hype. It was pretty hype. Before we get into everything, today we'll be discussing our 1.0 big board, so it'll be a lot of us yapping, if we're being honest. It'll be a lot of that about a lot of different prospects. Down below in the description, please do check out the Patreon page. You can watch this recording live. We are live on Patreon right now as we're recording it. Also, we do that with the fast break, the onside kick. Dave and I will have exclusive content coming to the Patreon during the season as well, mostly giraffe stuff as well. And also, the Discord is down below. There's an NBA draft section. It is free to join. Join the community. Call us out in our takes. Give us your big boards, who you like, who you don't like. Also, leave it down in the comments. Leave a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, and also hit that bell if you want to get notified every single time that we do post a video. Or, you know, if some of us get bored and go live during the season, that'll probably happen at some point. We'll do watch-alongs probably at some point. A bunch of different stuff. We have a bunch of ideas in the pipeline I'll go with. But yeah, today we're going to be discussing our 1.0 big boards. I know to Dave's dismay, we are only doing 30 players today.
I'm just saying, like, when you got a list of, like... I think I was at like 230 last time I counted. Like I pretty much had like D1 plus, you know, like amount of players.
Yep.
But it's tough because you don't know what you're going to get with so many of these prospects. So when you're looking at, you know, the NBL, when you're looking at about 5 different leagues going on in Europe, you got to include, you know, a certain Chinese league for one specific player, maybe. You got to look everywhere. I mean, you got to look at the G League still. There is still a member of the SIGNUP down there.
There is.
So there's a lot of places you got to be paying attention to for basketball prospects. And hopefully we're going to bring them all together into this one nice place called the Draft Room for you.
Yeah, and today we'll be doing, like I said, 30 players, not 30 through 11. 30 players. This is going to be the most discrepancy you've probably seen at any of our big boards. There's going to be players that Dave has that I don't have. There's might be players I have that Dave doesn't have. And there's going to be a lot of players probably that I might have a player in the 20s and Dave might have them in the top 10, because that's what a 1.0 is, genuinely.
It is players that we forgot about because we had to narrow the list down so much and so many times over.
There's 100% going to be players that we miss out, and I will say probably not for the 1.0, but as we get deeper in the season, if we get enough comments on our big boards and our mock drafts, we will do mailbags. So if you guys have questions, concerns, whatever, down below, or join the Discord and pop us in there and you can add us straight away. I'm marginal contact in the Discord and Dave is Dave. So but yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Dave, give me your 30 through 21.
You gave out a lot of warnings, and I'm going to give out one more warning. I feel like this list is a lot of players who, you know, it's hard to project what they're going to be at any given point in this year. So some of these names are names that I'm throwing in there because I feel like I want to mention them out the gates. And they might not actually be the number 30 guy on my big board, but I feel like shout out necessary.
I am also, and I'm fair warning, I'm going to butcher so many names.
Oh, yeah.
Even like there's a guy that goes to Duke. That's name is like Knipple or whatever his name is.
On Knipple.
I have said that wrong for 2 weeks now. So, yeah. All right, Dave, hit me off.
Okay. At number 30, I've got Scotty Middleton. At 29, Mackenzie Mbako. At 28, Carter Knox. At 27, shout out from last year, Nick Clifford. At 26, Sam Walters. 25, Colin Murray Boyles. 24, Michael Ajay. 23, Will Riley. 22, Dink Pate. 21, Rocco Zakarski.
All right, yeah.
And I think that's all this section.
That's interesting. I think I heard just a couple names. This is so for those of you who don't know, shout out Retro and Soapy. They have been my draft guides, because last year I kind of was the first year I was actually like the last 2 years I was like, I'm going to take a break from the draft because I did so much draft stuff the couple years before that I was so burnt out. Like if you go back and check out our 2021 NBA draft content, I was doing hour-long mocks. I was doing hour-long mocks by myself. I was, and you know, that was, I nailed some of those picks, I got to say, you know, shout out. But yeah.
We all got those picks.
Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to butcher about 3 of these names, but
Let's hear it.
if I miss players, blame Retro and Soapy. At number 30, I have KJ Lewis. At number 29, I have Michael Ruzick. At number 28, I have Alex Tuhey.
Yep. Tui.
Tui, there you go. At number 27, I have Will Riley. At number
Yep.
26, I have Darion Reed. At number 25, I have Knipple. I always forget how to say his name. Knipple. Number 24, I have Liam McNeely. Number 23, I have Hugo Gonzalez. Number 22, Carter Bryant. And number 21, Donnie Freeman. So there's some players that overlap. So let's start there.
Yep.
I honestly, you have a couple players. Rocco and Carter Knox are coming up on my list, so we can save them for the next segment because we'll have them there. But actually, you know what? Just give me somebody. The lower guys in your list, honestly, I don't have that much knowledge about. So if there's one that you want to spew some.
So yeah, at the guy I slid in the list, Scotty Middleton. Last year, Ohio State, he ended up playing a handful of minutes, like the whole season. I think he had been coming in as like a ranked RSCI, like 50 to 60 kind of wing. He's a really good shooter. He just had to grow into his body, and Ohio State didn't have minutes for him, so he transferred out. I fully expect him, obviously new team, new role. He's already had like an interview, talked to, his new coach, put it on the record. It's like, look, Seton Hall has an opportunity for you to be more you and get minutes out there. Cause I don't know if he averaged, let me double check his average. Yeah, he was averaging like 15 minutes, but it was not a whole lot of role on that team. So for a player with his shooting, like, I want to say like reputation going into college, I feel like Ohio State just wasn't a match for like, let's showcase your opportunity. And the positions he got put into weren't great. So he's a 6'6" wing, good shot, backdoor cutter. Like he's exactly like the kind of like high level role player that I would hope for. And then I'm hoping to see like at Seton Hall on what should be a pretty decent team this year. Like he should have an opportunity to shine out and be something.
Yeah, I find it interesting, right? Because especially in a 1.0, I've never, even when I was doing the draft content back then, I've never actually participated in a 1.0. But it's interesting because there's players that I have. You've watched everybody. I know you're a sicko, so I understand. My education has been starting about 2.5 weeks ago. So I mean, yeah, I think one of the points that you made is that college is. It's very big about fit now with NIL and everything. Is that people can jump ship. So there's a guy who have not played on a top team last year. He's out to Seton Hall, like you said, this year. And now he could easily jump up to a first-round prospect if he has a great year. And I know you said you don't know if you might have slid him in. So you might be a second-round guy. I mean, like,
he's somebody who I had last year is like, this is an outside chance of like, he can pop off at Ohio State. But again, like I said, Ohio State's offense was run through one man, and it was not named Scotty Middleton. So that's fine. Like after that, though, Mackenzie Mbako is someone who big, strong wing. Rough start to last year, finished well, leading into like the end of the season for Indiana. He actually ended up staying with Indiana, which in the NIL days, that's incredibly rare. Okay. But he's like a 6'8", like jacked wing. I think he's like 225-ish.
Love that.
And he has like that combination of like, he will work in the paint with the ball, but also he can take threes. And like, that's the thing it's going along with his game. But I like 6'8" guys who can score on multiple levels, and his rim play is pretty solid. But he just muscles guys in the paint and gets advantages, gets to the line some. So like he's someone who I think not only his college game is good, but I don't know if I'm going to use the line already. Yep. I don't know if you watch much of Indiana last year.
No, I haven't.
But Malik Renew was like the guy who the ball ran through, and obviously Khalil Ware was like their offensive, like we're going to dump everything off to. Okay. Like he was the, big scorer. So like between the two of those were like the two focal points of the offense. And Mackenzie was supposed to be right there with them. It took him through the most of the year to catch up to like where he should be kind of offensively. So I'm really excited for him. Continue through with high volume. Like there's a couple of, I think 2 transfers in at Indiana, but like he is the number 1 guy in my mind as far as like just he's a strong 3-level wing. And if he can keep going, I kind of just, I think you'll notice a trend here. The guys under 6'5" are not many on my list.
I was going to say. I'll mention the first guy on my list was KJ Lewis, Arizona guards. He's 6'4", so he's not 6'5". I assume he didn't make your list?
He did not make my list. Okay. I can tell you right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my reasoning from the stuff that I watched from him is super energetic guard. I wouldn't say crazy bouncy, but he is one of the things that I was impressed is that he really knows how to control tempo. What's the word I'm looking for? Initiating. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really knows how to control tempo while initiating. Really, he actually snakes the pick and roll more than most guards that I watched in this already. Kind of a high energy guy as well, because I saw a lot of offensive rebounding, a lot of second chance points, and just beating people to the ball, I would say. So I was impressed. I mean, and when I'm looking at the back end of first round prospects, I'm just looking at, can I find a role in this guy this guy in the NBA?
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that this guy is gonna. I don't think he's like a starter long term or anything like that, but I liked his shot motion. It looked good. And I just thought an energetic guard who's 6'4", has a little bounce, can control the tempo, and can make shots. I was like, that's a guy who could get taken in the first round and play for somebody.
So do you see him? And this is not like,
no, you're good.
For those who haven't seen me and Jake talk about prospects, or Jake and I talk about prospects, it's going to seem a little adversarial at times when we question picks. And I'm not trying to come in with like whatever, but he's someone who I question like role at the next level. Like you mentioned, he can go downhill and snake pick and roll, and like that's great. But at 6'4", if you're not a primary creator, you have to, in my mind, if you're not primary creator, you have to be an efficient scorer. And I think that this year he has to show out that he can take volume threes, which is not really part of his game right now. Is that a concern for you? Or do you think that he's going to go the other way and become more of a creator on that offense after guy who left to go play for Illinois from Arizona, and I've already blanked on his name.
That's going to happen a lot. That's going to happen a lot.
Literally Illinois. I know, it's going to take me a minute. I apologize.
I'll answer, though. I think, I don't know if I see him as a primary creator, so I think he's going to have to improve his scoring. I mean, he was at about 35% from three. It wasn't at a high volume, obviously.
Island Boswell,
yes. So it wasn't at a high volume, obviously, so we'll have to see this year. I don't know. I have a soft spot, and you'll see this with my rankings of guards who can kind of do a little bit of everything, but aren't great at anything. You know what I mean? I just think like, he has a good frame. Obviously 6'4". He's not one of those, you love 5'10" guards who try to put
I
into the ladder.
specifically went into this draft class.
You're like, I'm not doing it?
Don't be Dave this
You're
year.
Not do it?
Don't do it.
No
don't be Dave. Don't fall in love with someone who is under 6'1",
you do it.
who is going to have some issue very clearly outside of maybe the game of basketball that will affect his stock.
Hey, shout out Tyrell Terry and shout out Sharif Cooper. Those are two Daves. He poisoned me with the Sharif Cooper too. It was bad because even I had him like top 15 because you poisoned me.
Talented.
Yeah, but you poisoned
me. But he does not care about basketball enough to be good.
And that's kind of a worry.
It says a lot. Like a lot of these guys, they don't get here without being extremely talented. Like this is not a sport where you can just like lazy your way into the NBA.
Yep.
But at college, if you were that kind of a star prospect leading up to college, you can play college and still be a stud. But the jump from college to the pros is massive.
Yeah.
And you can't get away with that. It shows very clearly who's putting in work and who's not.
So the next guy I'll ask you, is Michael Ruzick on your board? Is he higher or is he not on your board?
He just missed out on my first round.
Okay,
I do think that he's probably first round talent.
Yeah, I agree.
But I want to see more play from him. It's more of a situation of I wanted to showcase some names on this list, and I think that he's someone who, well, not to sound smart, but like
I know.
I feel like he's going to get talked about for the majority of the year. And I think some of these fringe guys have a chance to, like, I'm afraid guys like Sam Walters, Will Riley, Michael Ajay might fall out of this first round. So I want to talk about them now because I might not get a chance to until we hit like the full 2-round mocks.
That's fair. But I think he is probably a first round prospect. He started out lower on my board when I was going through people, but then every single time I went back and watched him a little bit, I know Soapy likes him a lot more than I do. I was like, there's a role for him. Obviously with the 7-foot wingspan, but he also can stretch the floor. He kind of can do a little bit of everything. I don't know exactly what his ceiling is going to be, but I feel like there's a role, especially when I think he's 6'9", 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, something like that, and you can shoot the ball. There's somebody out there that can get you minutes in the NBA. I don't know what his exact role is going to be. We'll see this year with his development, but his shot mechanics look good. Defensively, we'll see. I think that's
a lot of guys on this list.
Yeah, defensively, we'll see. There's only like 2 or 3 where I'm like, they're dogs. They're dogs, and one of them's in my next section. We'll talk about it. But I don't know. I guess it's a wait and see with him. I think it's with a lot of prospects, and you hear that us say that. But when it piques my interest when I see a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", whatever, and 7 feet tall, has a good shooting stroke and can put the ball on the floor as well. So he's not going to be like a creator or anything like that. But if you go with him as a 3 or a 4 into a lineup and you play him, he kind of can play next to anybody. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Honestly, Sam Walters is kind of like, he's a 6'10 guy who's a wing, who's a floor spacer. Left Alabama, surprisingly, to go to play for Michigan. And I'm not quite sure if he's going to end up starting out the gates. I think he is going to be part of their best lineups.
Okay.
But they did pay a bunch of cash to bring in an NIL recruit who also plays the 4. So at 6'10, he's like a nice floor spacing, catch and shoot big who can also work a little bit in the paint. So, like, again, I'm like 6'10 wings who can shoot. I think he had 99 attempts from 3 last year, and he hit him at a 39% rate. So, like, pretty good volume, good shooter, good free throw shooter. I think, free throw, only 40 attempts. Again, for a 6'10 guy, I'd like to see more, but the way that Alabama used him was basically very similar. Like, I found him by watching Jaren Stevenson. Jaren Stevenson has the higher rep at Alabama for being like, hey, he's a 6'10 wing who ends up playing more wing than big for them, but he's kind of like a tweener. And I'm like, yeah, but Sam keeps knocking down shots, and the offense clicks way better when he's out there. And I'm just like, as much as I want to like buy into Jaren's stock because he has like some defensive interests, some, the tweener aspects, like, I will just take a pure 6'10 shooter who's got a better free throw, better 3, more volume. Like, he earned his minutes, doesn't turn over the ball as much. He doesn't try to do as much with it, which trade-off. But, like, let's be honest, if I'm drafting someone in the late 20s or, let's say middle second round, I'm looking for a role player who can fill a specific niche, and he's got potential NBA level skills on the offensive side when it comes to floor spacing at that height and that size.
Well, I think it's interesting because this class, there's a clear top like 2-3 tiers, right? Like this class, when we get into the top 10, they're all like, I think there's probably like 11 and 12 prospects in this draft that separate themselves from everybody else. We'll get into those names, but like these bottom guys, I'm just looking for like, do you have skills that are translatable, right? Are you a guy who can play with other people? Because when you I'm not looking to get, and I shout out, I'm not trying to find a Nick Claxton down here right now. I'm trying to find a guy who can plug and play in lineups and isn't a detriment.
I got Rocco here.
I have Rocco almost, so it's okay. We can actually start the Rocco conversation because I'm going to have him right in my next section, so I have no problem talking about him now. I'll start. I watched Rocco, and shout out Retro. He is big on Rocco, obviously, as another Australian. And again, this was before I knew this year that he really hasn't played much yet, that he's been benched for most of the year. It's only
he's coming off the bench.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry. Not when I say bench, it sounds a little bit more dramatic than it is.
It does. I was gonna say he's playing behind one of the better centers in the NBL, to be fair.
Yeah, but I think he's good. I think he could be an NBA center. But one of the comparables that I was looking at is Derek Lively, just because a guy who's height, who doesn't have like. But Lively's more athletic. I'm not comparing them player to player. Let me shout that out real quick. But kind of a role that we saw Derek Lively play last year, which was semi-limited with the Mavs. Can you play off ball? Can you be a screen setter, a roller, a rim protector, and then a rebounder? I think Rocco can do a lot of those things. I'm just worried about what Rocco can grow his game into, right? Because I don't know. Like Derek Lively, you look at him, he's already ball handling. He has a shot and all that, right? But that's why I'm trying to like be comparable with them because they're both centers above 7 feet. They don't have like Derek Lively has the crazy athleticism while Rocco kind of, I see him jump off the ground and I kind of like twinge a little bit. It's kind of,
and you're like, I could slide a piece of paper under there, maybe 3 sheets.
Exactly. I just think he's super limited. That's just my only concern with him when he's coming to the next level.
Yeah, I completely understand and I agree. There's a lot to like about anybody who's 7'2" and who can, rim protect and run. But like, yeah, I think that anybody who has long-term bets on him being able to be like a modern 5 and stretch the floor for any distance is on some hardcore copium at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's going to fall out of the first round purely because there are just a limited number of true bigs in this class. Somebody who didn't make my first round, but I think talent-wise is close, is Janai Broom. And he is a 6'10" big who plays for Auburn, and he is a floor spacer. He is somebody who offensive hub and really smart player, but 6'10". He's not that rim protector. And I think that's the problem is like I look at the levels of like, how many guys are true like old school centers versus like modern centers versus small balls. And it's like the way you scope it out, it's like as far as rim protectors go, like there's not many great rim protectors that are expected in this class. Maybe if you believe in Zvonimir's brother, who's playing for Illinois, blanking on Avizic, Tomislav Avizic. He moves a little slower, so I'm not sure. Like even Rocco makes him look slow, kind of situation.
Which is impressive.
So yeah, a little concerned. Like he's a true rim. He's old school big. And then outside of that, there's a handful of guys. Like if you believe a Daimar can come back and like not look completely overwhelmed by anybody who weighed more than like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Maybe he's another European big who got overmatched last year. But there's not that many 7 foot plus rim runners. So I think that's where the value in Rocco is. You're investing in like a lottery chip or lottery ticket. And hoping that, hey, worst case scenario, this guy can play 10 minutes off the bench for me.
Well, if you want,
and he'll be something.
If you watch Trey Jackson-Davis play for the Warriors, right, his game is also super limited, right? He doesn't like do he doesn't do a lot outside of. Yeah, but he can, but he doesn't for them, right? For the Warriors, he kind of just runs the role of. I mean, I don't want to say it, but like we've seen limited centers in the past run for them, like Festus Ezeli and Kevon Looney and all those players, right? You set screens, you roll. You're at the rim as a jumper. Like, he can jump, but obviously better than Kevon Looney, which is not hard.
Well, at this point, Kevon Looney is held together with screws and duct tape.
Looney kid. But yeah, I kind of see that similar role for Rocco, and then we see if he can expand beyond that when he gets to the NBA. It's a lot of fit, right? Because you have to end up with a coach who knows. Like, if he ends up with Chauncey Billups, oh no. Because like you have to end up with a coach who knows how to use your limited skill set, because there is a skill set there to be used in the NBA for him. That's why I kept him in the middle of the first round for me, because I still think he is still a first round prospect in this draft, even though he is limited. Just because, like you said, there's not a lot of great centers in this draft. That is the one thing. This is definitely the weak spot, is the big man. I mean, unless you want to call Cooper Flag a big man, but
no, not quite.
He's like the tweener.
But
right?
I mean,
he's like the 3-4 tweener.
Look at the Grizzlies this year. They took Zach Edey. Yeah. He fouled out in 15 minutes in the first game. 14 minutes.
Impressive.
All right. Well, they rounded up. And we got to see a lot of run from Jay Huff, who has continued to build his game in the G League and dominate there as a defensive big who has grown an offensive shot. And it's like, that's maybe a path for somebody like Rocco, where it's like, hey, look, maybe day one you're not ready because, again, he's not getting 30 minutes a night in the NBL. So it's just going to take time and experience working with an NBA staff and NBA rosters and building up his skill set to match what a team can be, because Jay Huff is like 26-ish.
I feel
like he's way older than I thought.
I'm so happy somebody gave him a shot. That's what I was going to say.
Same.
So happy, because he is clearly like a guy, though, who, I mean, out of college, he looked super not limited, but he did not look like an NBA prospect. Goes down to the G League, wins back-to-back Defensive Player of the Years, I believe it was, in the G League, learns to stretch the floor consistently, and now he's on a top 6-7 team in the West, right? That is competing for a playoff spot every year. So shout out Jay Huff. I mean, he deserves some love. Give me a name from your list that you want to talk about.
I'll go contentious on my end. Colin Murray Boyles. He is someone who a lot of people really love. And I've got somebody who's similar to him in a much higher position on my board who made it into my top 10, who I think has been overlooked by way too many people, like disrespectfully so. But Colin Murray Boyles, for those who don't know, is a tank. He's like 6'7", and plays center. And that might be a conflict. And for me, that's a bit of a negative. He has a crazy long wingspan, though, so he makes up for it. He's got a great reach. Like, he does what he can with his body, and he has gotten stronger in the offseason. Even reports are saying, like, hey, the classic, he put on, 10 pounds of muscle line, that kind of stuff. He's a guy who didn't need to typically. He is extremely limited, though, offensively. He has a softer touch within a couple feet of the rim, but he cannot shoot to save his life. And that is, again, when you are 6'7", and you can't shoot, and your defense in the paint is good to above average, let's say, for your role, but then there's just limitations of you're 6'7", and it doesn't matter how much of a good offensive decision maker you are. Sometimes people are like, oh, he's kind of like Draymond, he could do this, he could do, and they're envisioning a way to make a square peg fit a round hole.
It does, yeah.
And I look at him and I'm just like, literally my lasting memory of him is him just getting murked out there in the tournament by N'Faly Dantley. And look, a real center who was barely good enough to make it in the NBA. I mean, again, it was injuries. I really am rooting for him. I think he can be. Again, kind of like Jay Huff is hey, if he has a healthy year, he can build on that.
Yeah.
And N'Faly's, he's a very good center. He was a senior at that time. So I was like, hey, true big versus 6'7" center. Let's see what happens. And, oh, guess what? The big won by a lot. And like, just it was a lopsided affair. And I'm like, so if you can't compete with a guy who's barely getting drafted, how are you a valuable prospect to me? Like, how are you going to magically do that if you don't have an outside shot? Because I'm like, okay, you're 6'7". You should either be like PJ Tuckering this or
not being a center. That's the answer.
Yeah.
But Colin Roberto did not make my list. He's at like 32 or 33 for me. I'm
actually so proud of that.
I was watching his game, and Retro loves to do this guy, and he said the Draymond thing. And as soon as I see that, I go, okay, so I need to see elite defense, elite ball mover on offense, like anything of that. And I saw literally none of that. I saw none of. I honestly don't think he does anything well from the tape I watched. He does not move amazingly as you would think for a 6'7" guy. He's a little bit bottom heavy is the word I would use.
Yep. He's thick.
Can't shoot. No. He's a fine passer, but if you're going to be 6'7", a little bit slow and need to be a mover, and you can't shoot, I need to see like elite passing. And that's why I hate the Draymond comparison, because Draymond can shoot. That whole thing of like every player who's undersized and plays defense and plays the 5 is now compared to Draymond. Or
Grant Williams is like the worser version. And even Grant had like a 12-footer that he could rely on in college at Tennessee. Yeah. So
I just think it's disingenuous to Draymond, honestly. I think the comps are just so easily thrown out there.
It's gotten disrespectful.
It has gotten a little bit disrespectful. Like
he's late career Draymond.
Yeah, late career Draymond. No, he's not even that though. Like even Draymond now, I was watching him and I kept like, this guy's a first round prospect. Like I just don't see.
I'm in love with him.
I don't see it. I don't see it translating. I maybe that's my hot take.
I think he's a dominating college player. That's kind of where I landed on him.
That's where probably I would land on him too. But even when I watched his college tape, I wasn't like, wow, what a guy, what a dominating force down there in the paint. I just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think he's a first round prospect, and I really feel like the only way he's going to succeed in the NBA is if he ends up on the exact right position and the exact right team with the exact right coach and the exact right scenario. And when that has to happen, unless your potential is like superstar, I don't really want to take the risk on you. You know what I mean? And that's kind of why
we just watched the offensive version of him get sent to China.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Kenny Lofton. He was. I still stand by that. His 8-minute cameo for the Sixers last year might be the worst 8 minutes I've ever seen somebody play in a Sixers uniform. It was bad. Somebody I want to touch on, is Hugo Gonzalez in your list?
No.
Okay, so let's get that conversation.
Someone who I love European players. I'm a big fan of scouting their game because it's played completely differently than college basketball. Typically slower pace, less reliance on iso ball. It's more like passing scheme system. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we're going to have to hope that he's going to get like 10 minutes a night is already one like limitation on where he could go, because as a player, he's awesome with energy. Like he is, I will throw my body in the line of fire to save, a ball to keep it in bounds. Like, I think he's above average defender, hella hustle. And I think that his basketball IQ is decently high. Like he tries to make the right passes sometimes, even if it's a situation where it's like a dangerous pass. Like he just kind of has that extra whatever. He's like, I can make this work kind of thing.
Yep.
But for a guy with no shot, it's very tough for me to project him forward. I watched his U18 tournament. I watched him play the previous season. And so far this season, he's had one performance where he actually got to try to shoot and play, more than 6 minutes. But I find it very difficult to buy the shot. And I think for someone who has his capabilities, I almost kind of want him to stay in Europe for one more year.
Yeah, I can see that. And
go to a team where he has a larger role. Yeah. Will he do that? Or maybe he'll just have a larger role on his team next year due to like contracts and whatever working out the way it could. But I just think that it's not as bad as like Rocco being held behind like the best guy and a center in the position. But like, it's just, they don't care about prospects. The goal is to win games, and he is, a defensive switchable stopper.
Yeah, that's why I definitely had him higher when I first started, and then he slowly started as I watched more and more prospects go down. He ended up at 23. I guess the 23 is a little bit more hope that the shot can kind of come along, because it's kind of like it's kind of the same thing back a couple years when we watched Matisse Thybulle, is that like we're like, this defense is so good that if he can just become like 30% from the field, he can find a role in the NBA. I just think he's a guy who does a lot of things okay, and then his defensive game is above average, like you said. I don't know if I'd put him in the elite category, but I'd put him in the above average category. And obviously a wingspan.
I mean, you don't see Josh Hart.
Yeah, Josh Hart's a pretty good comparison, but like it took Josh Hart. But I don't know. Josh Hart is like, I don't know. It's tough though, because Josh Hart is the kind of guy who makes like, you need a winning play, Josh Hart's there to make it. You know what I mean? And that's something I won't be able to tell from Hugo until he gets into the NBA game and starts playing big minutes, if that ever happens. Yeah. So I think his shot mechanics aren't terrible. It looks like he's more pushing from the face than he is lifting in his shot. It kind of looks more like a push. And if that can get fixed, it is just one of those things. His mechanics don't look as junky as other players that we've seen. They don't look terrible. It's not
totally broken. Yeah. They're guys.
Oh, it's not Matisse Thybulle who I'm seeing shoot like this and like elbows out and all that and all that. Like his feet are okay. I was watching a little bit of tape because I think it's Retro that likes him a lot. Like his feet are a little bit wider than they should be every time off the catch. Again, pushing from the face, it looks like a little bit. So I'll be interested to see if that gets adjusted over the next year. I think NBA shot doctors are miracle workers, some of them. We've seen them. Amen Thompson last night, he looked a little bit better from the corner. We'll see Asar when he comes back from the blood clots. Like, I think Hugo, there's potential inside there, but I've seen this player so many times come through the draft where they don't end up being good. You know what I mean? So that's my only concern, is that I've seen the wing prototypes where this has to go right and this has to go right and this has to go right, and none of it goes right. And then they're out in the league within like 3 to 4 years. So
exactly.
But there is a team that'll take a shot on him. Like this Hugo screams to me the guy that either, like you said, he stays overseas for 1 year longer, or he comes over and he's in the G League for a year. Kind of like the Pacers. The Grizzlies kind of took with Zaire Williams and kind of easing him in the first year, and then eventually they realized that brother stinks. Let's get him out of here. And
what about draft and stash for a couple of years?
Yeah, but then
like a certain guard for New York.
Well, I don't think Rokas is ever coming over to this point. It honestly pisses me off. Rokas is clearly good enough to play in the NBA, and they're just like, no, we like Campaign. Campaign's good. Yeah, it's just it's crazy to me.
That hurts me.
But yeah, I think Hugo would be interesting. If he does draft and stash though, I think the team's going to want him to sign somewhere, like you said, he has a bigger role, because that's going to be super important in his development. Because international ball, and it's kind of Rokas fell a little bit victim to this as well when he went to Barca, is like you get 5 shots a game, and you better make like 3 or 4 of those, or else that's going to go down to 4 shots, and that's going to go down as 3 shots. Like that's how it goes internationally, because international offenses are so minute, down to the minute detail, that like you're going to get this shot here and you better make it, because you've practiced it and you're open and you know you're going to get the shot. So make the shot. And if you don't, those minutes are going to be gone real quick, because international ball, they pump people out that can fill roles. Because nobody.
There's one team, and we'll talk about 2 of their players later in this class, where it's just like Ulm is. Yeah. We're like, hey, we're going to buy prospects and we're going to capitalize on name value. Yeah. And that's cool. I'm hoping more teams might be interested in doing that in the future.
I'm with that. That's great. Yeah. Ulm was great. The game, we'll talk about Seraph and...
the worst cameras in the world.
Yeah. Is it Noah and
Noah
Seraph? Right? Yeah, Noah and Seraph. Yep. But yeah, all right. Is there anybody else in your 21 through 30 that you want to talk about?
2 guys, very similar as far as both shooting wings, Will Riley and Knox.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if you had both of them in this section as well.
Will Riley in 27. Carter Knox will be in my next section.
Okay, so let's do Will Riley then, and we'll leave Carter for the next, and we'll wrap this section up. Will Riley, Canadian player, came down to Illinois on what is hopefully going to be one of the most stacked teams in college basketball this year.
We'll get into another one of their players later.
Yep. And I already mentioned Tomislav. They had a couple of transfers come in. It is going to be a very, very tough year to face off against them, and Brad Underwood being the head coach, he's already came out and talked about some things as far as offensive I'm going to say like styles, or like what they're trying to do offensively, and using big ball handlers to draw 2 defenders, ball movement from there. But it's, the idea of playing more ISO and then create off of that, versus last year, where I'm just going to leave that last year where it was.
We don't need to talk about them last year.
Yeah. So Will Riley, We got like a 6'6", 6'7",
They list him at 6'8".
long shooting guard.
They list him at 6'8".
Is he?
They
Okay.
list him at 6'8" now when I was doing the research. So
Okay. I'll have to see what the last measurement one that I had, because I had the Basketball Without Borders, and then I had the another
I'm
one.
gonna bet you he's probably 6'7", but they might list him at 6'8" now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But point being, smooth shooter and semi-capable ball handler for his size. I don't want to say he's a good ball handler because he's not good, but I think he's capable enough to create his own shot on the outside. Genuinely excited to see, because his shot motion just looks very clean, and I'm not a shot doctor. You are much more qualified for that as someone with some experience. My brain can't even make my hands, work right most times.
I've seen you shoot a basketball, so
it can't. My brain doesn't work that way.
It doesn't go great.
No, nope. But what do you think about Will Riley and us both having him here in this section? It's a crowded team. Do you think he'll get the opportunity? Because there is Boswell, there is Kasparis, Siak Jonas, there is Will Riley, Trey White is on there, who is a ball dominant wing as well. And then they have a floor spacing center, and then Tomislav. They got a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Is that a concern for you with Will?
I mean, that's always a concern, but honestly, when I'm looking at players in the draft, I'm looking for skill sets and tangibles. I'm not looking for their college numbers, because obviously there's been guys who average 20 a game in college and they don't last in the game. What's the guy's name? Washington, was it tiny guard? He was in the G League.
So many of them.
No, like tiny. No, like tiny.
5'8".
Yeah,
5'8".
Noel. Yeah, Noel. Whatever his name is, but he was like Jason Kidd in college, right? So I don't look for that. With Will Riley, I love his shot. I think he actually has a chance to be like the main shooter on this team by the end of the year. And that's what got me most excited. That's what got me most excited, and why I put him into the first round is if you have the size, the ball handling skills, which I'm not looking for advanced, but like if you're a tall wing who has capable ball handling skills, and then I like your shot as well, that's what boosted him up straight into the first round. And Kasparis getting him the ball on the wing is going to be fantastic. A lot of we kind of talked about it with Paul George for the Sixers, but a lot of playing off of the main action on the weak side, either in the corner or the wing, is probably where Will Riley's going to get a lot of his shots. And Kasparis, you'll hear how highly I think of him later. I think we both will like him. He'll be able to find him in those spots. So when the pick and roll is going on the strong side and he's on the weak side, that's where he's going to get most of his looks. And he is actually athletic enough where he can play the weak side corner and go cut and finish at the rim. I like his game. I truly think that he probably will stay in this 21 through 30 range for most of the year. Maybe he can jump up, but I think this is probably the range for him, the best for him. And honestly, I really, really like him.
Yep. Raw shooting wings. I mean, come on.
I love it.
That's what this year's all about.
I love it. Alrighty. Also, shout out the one guy I didn't talk about on my list was Donnie Freeman. I don't think you have him on your list.
I don't.
Yeah, Donnie Freeman.
Do you want to talk about Donnie Freeman?
Yeah, we can say, Syracuse. I'm a Syracuse fan. I think the shot is good enough. It'll see if it develops over the year. That's going to be his big thing, because he basically is a small ball 5 for us right now. But he's going to play next to Lampkin this year, so he's going to have to play some 4. We'll see how the shot goes. That's basically what it is with him. If his shot is average, I think he's a first round prospect, because uber athletic, 6'9", plays the small ball 5 in high school. That IMG team was not good this year. We'll see. We'll see this upcoming year. I don't think there's much to say with him. It's Syracuse fan holding out.
I'm less sold on him being a 4 and him being too small to be a 5. And
that's
there's
completely valid.
3 guys. There are 3 guys who are stuck in that situation who are all top prospects in this class.
That's completely valid.
As always, we'd like to thank the people that make these videos possible, our patrons whose names are displayed on the screen now. If you would like to become a patron, go ahead and click the Patreon icon in the bottom right. And if you'd like to check out another video from MVP Sports, hit the video in the upper left. As always, thanks for watching.